Good afternoon, planet Earth. A very good afternoon to you all. Welcome to Djuma Game Reserve here in South Africa, and welcome to the portion of the Greater Kruger National Park, one of the biggest national parks in Southern Africa, if not in Africa. And the next few hours of live broadcast from two of our vehicles driving around trying to find you some rather incredible wildlife. My name is Mark. I'm happy to report that Jason has come back to us for a little spell while he's on break from university. You better do that again.
Hello? Hello?
How are you, Jason?
I'm so fine, how are you?
I'm fine.
I'm so happy to be here, it's ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a break from classes at university, and it must be such a bind not having to be back with campus and everything.
Yeah, just being able to breathe and being in the bush, and it's changed so much. Seeing how it's changed is really exciting, and coming from the city, which is not my favorite place to be, it's just the most refreshing thing in the whole wide world.
Well, I suppose that in itself is refreshing for me too. Well, Scott and Djuma are heading up to Buffelshoek Dam. They're going to follow up on the saga that we've been following over the last couple of drives. Well, three drives. They're following up on quarantine male and the crocodile and the hyena and the elephants and everything that were there. Oh, it was crested barbet. Oh, he's flying. Not yet. I still want to get to the flower. And oh, sorry, we didn't get that crested barbet. Anyway, Scott's gone to follow up on quarantine and the crocodile saga. Ah, there's another one. Gonna fly, don't fly. It's not a crested barbet, but a bird next to the road right in front of us is really awesome. And it's round about now that I tell all of you that sometimes if you're a birder and you're new to our viewing, or other our drives and you're viewing for the first time, we have sometimes a little bit of a quiz. I'm going to just talk to Scott and I'll be back with you shortly. Have a look at this beautiful bird, and some of you, not the birders, some of you can tell me what this bird is. Scott, come in. Bye-bye, bird. Oh, you there. You're looking a bit scruffy, child. Scott, did you copy? Okay, I'll try him on Game Drive channel. How do you copy me now? Excellent. Okay, that on the northern side of the dam, but on the eastern arm, that one that goes from that big Balanites, where the end of that water is. If you go down there, down to the edge of the water, there's some dead logs in the water. He was around there, and so was the croc. Look how amazingly this bird balances. There is a little bit of a breeze this afternoon. I actually was hoping to mention it. Now, looking at it reminds me that looks like there's some weather. There's some pretty huge bank of cloud coming in from the south, and there has been a strange wind blowing all day. So there's definitely a turn in weather coming. We've had some very, very hot temperatures, and usually these hot temperatures sort of result in a change in atmospheric pressure. Pat says it's a long-tailed shrike. Thanks, Pat. Although it does have a universal name that we now are adopting. No, Lynn, not a fork-tailed drongo. Fork-tailed drongo has the very much shorter tail with a very distinct, not so much thin tined fork, but almost a much, well, a different forked tail. We'll find a fork-tailed drongo, and we'll see a fork-tailed drongo, but the fork-tailed drongo doesn't have this white in its wings. A long-tailed shrike, yes, and I'm sure somebody might mention that it's a magpie shrike, because it's the new, well, not the new name, but that's the universally known name. There are a lot of names. This is the thing about common names, colloquial names, names that or English names, whatever you want to call it. All animals have a scientific name, or a name that complies with the binomial nomenclature rules, for want of a better phrase, not to get too technical, but everything has a two-name thing, like a name and a surname. And all over the world you might get the same organism or plant or something, but it'll have different names because people call them different things. And here's a plant with a perfect example, and we haven't been here for so long, sadly. Flowers are not there anymore. A name that I heard from this a while ago, anyway, I'll get back to that flower shortly. But common names of birds, we've always had colloquial names here in South Africa that haven't really complied with the birding names from the rest of the world, and it's only recent that we are starting to, or not started, recently, maybe the last decade or so, that we are lining up with how the rest of the world calls the birds. And it's like the long-tailed shrike. Most of the world knew it as a magpie shrike, and we always called it a long-tailed shrike, and it's now been changed in our books to reflect what birders all over the world can recognize. And another one was a bird that we saw this morning, which was a thickney. We've always called them dikkops, assuming that the rest of the world knows what a dikkop is, but of course that's a little bit naive, and so we now call them thickneys too. Francolins and spurfowl and lapwings and plovers, and the list goes on and on. So sometimes I still remember the old names and I still haven't even learnt the new names. Oh, you're on me. I thought you were on the flower.
I've just come to you. Let's go back to the flower.
No, it's fine. Flower me. There, actually, you can, because there's a little bud, a flower bud on the extreme left of that plant. This is a little succulent. We've been looking at this flower for a little while. Sadly, the flowers have died. The three flowers that were facing us, and I always wanted to come back here in the afternoon. I was here in the morning. But there is that little green bulb on the left is a flower that will be bursting soon. I've always known it as the carrion flower, and learned from some of our American viewers that it's a starfish flower. But Jason and I are going to be carrying on. We're going to see what we can find for you, and I'm going to hand you over to Scott, who's gone up to Buffelshoek Dam, and we'll see what he's got from there rather.
Welcome on board the Jigger. Myself and VM are here at Buffelshoek Dam, and sadly there's been no sign of quarantine yet, but we've got a beautiful scene unfolding with a large herd of Inyala coming down to drink, and it really is quite spectacular to see. They are very nervous, and rightfully so. Quarantine could still be around, and for those of you who are unsure of quarantine, it's a young male leopard who's been seen here for the last 3 drives, I believe. And he was busy feeding on one of these animals that we are currently watching. And this is just beautiful. The crocodile is not too far from where these Inyala are drinking, but he doesn't seem too interested in them. He certainly is big enough to take one of these Inyala, though. We've just got a question through from Deb in Ohio, and she's interested to know how Quarantine got his name. And how leopards are most often named in these areas is that they are named after an area that they spend time in. And Quarantine does spend a lot of time in an area called the Quarantine Open Areas or Quarantine Clearings, which is an area in the central parts of Djuma that was used as a quarantine area when they were restocking this area with different game. So typically either they get named after, like I said, an area that they live in, or kind of a character trait of theirs, possibly if they're aggressive or shy, they'll be named for those according reasons. Now you can see how nervous these Inyala are, and rightfully so. It's a very dangerous time for them, and will continue to get more dangerous as the dry season continues, because water sources become more and more busy and fewer and further between. Well, VM's busy panning across to the crocodile, so you'll be able to tell he's not far away, but he hasn't moved an inch. And the other day between drives, I actually saw him. I came out here to have a look at him and saw him eating 3 terrapins within a space of about 10 minutes. So maybe he's just filling up on terrapins. He was also apparently seen playing tug of war with Quarantine and the dead Inyala that Quarantine was feeding on. We are not sure who made the kill. It's possible that the crocodile did kill the Inyala initially. Either way, they were wrestling together with one another. Copy, thanks, Nikki. So Nikki's just let me know exactly where Mark last saw Quarantine, and Mark was last here with him this morning, and it wasn't far from where these Inyala are, so who knows, he could be stalking them as we speak. And we'll certainly have a closer look in that area where he was last seen. Copy, thanks. There's a strong chance that these Inyala's nerves may be heightened by the fact that Quarantine was walking around this dam and in this area that they're in, and their sense of smell is incredible, and they could potentially be smelling him. But can't be certain of that. It could simply be that they are nervous of drinking simply because they know they are in a vulnerable position when they are drinking. It is something to think about, though, and something to remember, because their senses really are far, far greater than ours. Once this final Inyala has had its drink, we don't want to disturb them, then we will head up towards where those buffalo are, because it was apparently just behind the buffalo where Quarantine was left, and there's As you can see, a number of hiding places where he could be lying in the shade relaxing. He was very full-bellied after feeding on an Inyala for probably 2.5 days. And if we fail to have any luck actually finding him, hopefully we'll find some tracks. There's a chance that he would have moved off. And if he did, then hopefully we'll be able to find some of his footprints, and that way get an idea where to continue searching for him. We've just got a question through from Kathleen on Twitter. Good afternoon, Kathleen, and welcome. Kathleen is interested to know whether the male Inyala, which was a slightly darker, more chocolatey brown color than the females that we've been seeing. And yes, it was small, Kathleen, and it certainly wouldn't be mating. It would be one of the offspring from not the 2014 batch, but probably the 2013 litter, where they would have been born in probably November or December 2013. And they are still allowed to hang out with the family, but in the coming years they will move off. Oh, there's quarantine. We've hit the jackpot straight in front of us. Well done, VM. And look at him, he's just really shown some focus and attention to these Inyala. And what is his move going to be from here? Not easy hunting, because he's got a large tract of water ahead of him, or in front of him between these Inyala, but I'm so glad we got to see his change in body language there, because it does show that even though he's full-bellied, he's not going to pass up on any meals, and will certainly show some focus and intent on them, as he continues to do now. This is too good to be true. Well, we've just got a question through from Grace asking whether Quarantine will eat again today. And Grace, you can see by his body language and his intentions that he certainly will, despite being full-bellied. And that's a trait of predators out here. It's not easy for them to catch prey, and any opportunity that they'll get, they'll make the most of. Now, as VM panned across there, you would have got a good idea of where the leopard was in relation to the Inyala. So he's got a lot of work to do, and he'd have to do a big loop around behind them in order to be able to make an attack. But there are just incredible amounts of Inyala, which actually doesn't aid in his efforts too greatly, because it's extra eyes and ears that will be able to detect him. Now, I haven't seen him since he disappeared behind that little bush, but continuing to search with my binoculars, but I think he may be taking a very wide berth with the hope of getting around behind these Inyala, which will take him some time. We're not going to move a muscle though, and by keeping still, hopefully we won't interfere in whatever is going to happen here. What a beautiful sight, all these Inyala coming down to drink though. And there's another young male coming down, and it would be nice to show you that it is a slightly more dark chocolate brown than the females. It also has a white chevron between its eyes, which is characteristic of the males, even when they're very young. So out of the youngsters that are still the lighter brown color, you may notice some that have the white chevron even before the horns start protruding. And that Inyala's horns would need to be about 2 or 3 times the length before it starts competing for females. So still a youngster. Where is he hiding? Can you see him? Oh, there he is. Well done. The quarantine male has popped up at Buffalo's Hook Dam. Oh, look at this. Now, there's a combination of factors here that we need to think of. He's got the water between them. He does have a full belly. He is trying to obviously edge closer, but I fear that he's not showing the right initiative to get into the right position here. He would need to do a big loop around behind these Inyala if he has any chance. That is, of course, unless he waits there patiently and waits for another animal to come down and drink in front of him. Yeah, you can make your way. I'm on the eastern side of the dam. Okay, copy, thanks. I'm just going to roll forward a bit.
Cool.
We've just got a question through from Gail asking whether he'd be able to clear the stretch of water in a leap and make it to the Inyala, and that's sadly, I think, far too big a gap, probably double the distance he could cover in a leap, and there's simply too much open ground between him and the Inyala for him to make a successful hunt from where he is positioned. So unless he loops around, he's got very little chance of catching these Inyala, despite his intent that we can see, his plan is a flawed one at this stage. To give you an idea of distance or length of, or space that a leopard would need to be in proximity to their prey before unleashing the chase, would probably be, as VM pans out, from where he is to the small two branches, dead branches or lighter colored branches in the bushes in front of him, at about 5 meters to 6 meters. So a very, very close distance. The prey animals are exceptionally fast, and like I say, typically 5 meters, 6 meters would be an ideal distance at which it would launch its attack. And there's just far too much open ground and this massive stretch of water that's not aiding in his purposes this afternoon. Now, even though this may be looking like a tricky opportunity for him, that's not to say other antelope don't come down later and come down on his side of the waterhole, and that will certainly be a very, very different scenario. You can see he's still panting very heavily from the heat, and it's not too hot this afternoon. It's a combination of the heat and also the fact that his stomach is so full that meat will be pushing up against his diaphragm and therefore causing him to take short, sharp breaths as opposed to larger, deeper ones. You can even see how he's sitting. He's trying to comfort his large belly. Go ahead. Let me just double check, confirm anybody else is making their way here. There's just 2 vehicles. Who? Abel. Copy that, that's perfect. So Abel's on first standby. Lex is making his way as a third. So they thankfully have got away unscathed this afternoon, and it'll be interesting to now watch what he does. He may be wanting to come down for a drink shortly, which would be great, especially if he comes down to the water from where he's sitting now. We'll have a wonderful angle to view him from. And even if he doesn't come down and drink initially, there's some great prospects for later. So looking forward to that. Sandy's just asked a very interesting question, and that is whether we think that he's potentially waiting for the crocodile to do all the hard work before he comes down to steal the Inyala from it. And I don't think so, Sandy. He hasn't once looked across at the crocodile. That's not to say that if the croc did manage to nab one, he would certainly probably run in and try and wrestle it away. Something that would be wonderful to see, and thanks for planting that seed of thought into our heads, because it is a good one to think about. Even if it doesn't happen, just imagining it is a great thought. Well, here he comes, and I think he's going to come down and drink. I'm just going to continue to roll forward a little bit. The Nyala have all headed off in the opposite direction. He does still appear to be looking in the direction they were heading, but that's still not to get you excited. It seems like he showed some interest, but the opportunity wasn't good enough for him to commit to. Sounds good. Good idea. Sorry, forgot about that. Well, we're going to keep an eye on Quarantine and his movements, but it sounds like Mark has found an interesting scenario that all of you would enjoy watching, so we're going to cut across to him, and we'll be sure to let Nikki in Final Control know if anything changes here.
Well, from one side of Djuma and one drama playing out at one dam here in this little patch of wonderful bushveld in South Africa to another not so dramatic drama that's unfolding at Treehouse Dam. We have some of the hyena, I'm guessing from the local clan, passing their day away on the edge of the dam. Couple of them in the water. What is so interesting about this, and what is really quite amazing, is that there's this amicable aura or atmosphere here with the buffalo bulls that are lying just behind them. And ordinarily buffalo would probably not tolerate any predators. Ordinarily they'd probably try and chase them off. But I think it's almost as though there's an understanding that, well, nothing's going to happen. There are only 4 hyena, and they're not going to really do anything to a big buffalo bull. So the buff, I guess, are not that worried. And quite a remarkable scene. Just animals passing by, or rather passing the time of day, ignoring each other's company, but by the same token not impacting on each other. The buffalo, no doubt, very well aware of the hyena being here, well aware that they are predators and that they can pose a threat at times to the youngsters, even if these are old buffalo bulls. But what's the point in expending too much energy and fussing over things when there's enough mud to lie in, and there's just time to wait to see what's going to happen. There's incredible changes in weather happening, and the bush is getting very, very dry very, very quickly.
So nice.
Beautiful.
So nice.
Peace in the land.
Exactly. Have you seen any comments on this?
No, sorry. Did you? Yeah, sure. Did you go up to Mpisi Kaya? No. Okay. You going up to Buffalo? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, there was a Mafaz and a Mampimpan that was up Zoe's Road for a couple of days, but I haven't seen where they went. Okay, now I've spent the last few drives up at Buffelshoek Dam. Yeah, Gwenya and Ingwe and Misi. Pardon?
How long will you sit right here?
I'm broadcasting live at the moment, and it's an interesting thing. We're switching cameras. We've got another vehicle at the other dam that has leopard. But I'm going to go and look for some parasitic wasps soon. She is. She's also got some very worn ears, and I think if we had to look closer, you'd be able to see individual bite marks in those ears from fighting, I guess. I think there's also a possibility that a lot of animals that are out in the midday sun, you look at the tips of her ears, they're starting to resemble a little bit of sun exposure, severe sunburn. Cheers. Bye. Enjoy. An interesting development. Hyena just lazing around the dam. 4 of them. I can see the one on the far left is not a very old individual. Neither is, well, the others seem to be. The others are a bit scruffy. That one's fur is still pretty thick. Quite distinct spots, telling me it's a little bit younger than the others. We would need to look at all of the... You can also see how that little one's ears are not nearly as tattered and worn as the others. And, well, to be honest, there's not much that I can recognize about this lot. Sounds like maybe we need to cross back to Scott pretty soon, because I think Scott is saying that young quarantine might be getting active. We don't want to miss any action there. Certainly not really much happening here for a while. Yeah, it's not often we get to see something like this. I'm going to stay here for a little while and see if anything develops. And in the meantime, we go back to Scott and see what's happening at Buffelshoek Dam. It's going to be nice to switch between the two. So I'll see you all a little bit later, folks.
Welcome back, and what an afternoon it's been so far. So happy that Mark's found the hyena doing some wallowing at Treehouse Dam. Some really interesting stuff that, and like I say, what a great afternoon so far. I had a feeling that Quarantine was going to get up and go and drink, so I let Nikki know in the final control, and that's why she has linked back to us. He did yawn once, and it is a good indicator that they could be moving shortly. So about a minute ago he let off a yawn, and we'll keep watching closely and see if that doesn't lead to another yawn and then potentially him coming down for a drink. It's not guaranteed, but because of his proximity to the water's edge, I thought we would just make sure. We've just got a question come through from Julia in Houston. Good afternoon, Julia, and welcome. Julia's interested to know if we ever come across fur balls that the lions or leopards cough up, and we certainly do. And it is a problem that they face with a lot of their prey being extremely furry. So yes, it does happen just like it would with domestic cats. It does happen with lions and leopards and cheetah, of course. So no different to your domestic cats, just larger. Just got a question through from Blair, and she's interested to know whether crocodiles have any predators, and they certainly do. Lion and leopard being two animals that sadly I've never seen catching a crocodile live, but I have seen photographs and footage of both lions and leopards catching crocodiles. So that's an immediate prey source that I can think of, or predator that will feed on crocodiles. But it's also a lot of predators when crocodiles are smaller. Storks and herons, birds of prey will catch baby crocodiles, even water monitor lizards. Their own species will feed on the young crocodiles if they are not guarded by their mother, which they are for the first few weeks of their life. But they certainly do have predators, the crocodile, and this big individual that we see here will be one of very, very few that make it to adulthood. I've just seen a woodlands kingfisher take its first plunge into the water, and our VM is getting in position to try and capture it as it comes down again. They usually take about 4 or 5 plummets into the water before they Copy, thanks Abel. So I don't think it's its first bath, and let's see if we can capture it plummeting into the water again. Oh, it looks like it may be getting ready to turn around and come back in.
I'll have to take a picture and I'll show you. It's the spot that one's perfect.
Now this is a juvenile woodlands kingfisher. You can tell because its beak isn't completely red yet. The sub-adults. Here it comes. Oh, well done, VM. We've just got a question through from Tim in Arkansas. Good afternoon, Tim, and welcome on board. Tim is interested to know whether leopards have a preference in hunting at night or hunting during the day. And I think it is fair to say that at night, with the cover of darkness, it is probably their most successful time of hunting. But they certainly can and will hunt during the day. And even in the height of summer, when it's extremely hot and you'd expect them not to be moving, they do move around, and often when they are moving, they can kill and catch prey. And even if they're lying around in the heat of the midday summer, they can still catch prey that stumble upon them. It would be very interesting to know stats on individual leopards to know whether, or the percentage of kills made at night or during the day, but even in an area like this where we get to view the far left, can potentially smell the leopard, and it does seem a little bit inquisitive in something, and let's see if it doesn't follow up on the scent of this leopard and see if it doesn't chase it around. In the meantime, it's just using this opportunity to scratch itself on this dead log.
And get aggro towards them, and they get chased further and further away, and then the chances of the two of them meeting up again are reduced greatly, and they might end up being far away, establishing territory somewhere. If they do come across one another after that, there's really probably aggression towards each other.
Well, they still get good at it.
I don't know.
Quarantine certainly doesn't seem too concerned. And for those of you who are watching Brent on Drive a couple of weeks back with Djuma, they certainly do know their capabilities, these leopard, and will occasionally toy with buffalo just for the fun of it. This individual's brother, Djuma, as I said, stalked up to a very large buffalo bull. It wouldn't in a million years ever be able to take it down, but just for the fun of it, it was stalking up to it until such a point that the buffalo realized and then chased Djuma up a tree. It was a great sighting to witness for those of you who had tuned in for it. It doesn't seem like Quarantine is going to be performing the same stunts this afternoon, though. He seems far too relaxed to be getting involved in any nonsense with the buffalo.
You can adjust it to the chippies.
Oh, is that
You can do that for each lens. So,
Copy, thank you, Nikki.
not a lot. Mostly when we see the big herds of buffalo come.
Good afternoon, Anne in Pennsylvania, and welcome along. Anne is interested to know whether the oxpeckers ever tried to groom the lion or leopard for the ticks, and the answer to that is no. They have obviously learnt over the years that it would not be a wise move to try and feed on ticks on one of these animals, as it could well be that they end up getting fed on. And that's important to know with predators. Even the big cats like lion and leopard will feed on tiny prey. Any source of food that is available to them, they will take the opportunity of. And I've even seen leopard feeding on tiny baby chicks still in their nest, in a small nest in a tree. So they will feed on birds, and even the tiniest of them.
Dominates the
Big bull like that for sure.
Would they be allowed to make still in the big herd?
We've
No.
got one big buffalo now. This same individual who was scratching his jaw earlier is now either scratching behind his ears. That's one theory. That's certainly, you can see what he's aiming to do, and also potentially displaying his strength to a degree, or even polishing up those horns to make himself look more impressive. And it looks like we've got lucky, because occasionally a branch gets stuck behind their ear, and it has in this situation. So let's hope it stays there, because it really does look quite funny. There we go. These new decorations for the evening. It could well be that these buffalo also bumped into quarantine on their way down to the waterhole during the course of the day.
That's the spine of the dead.
And let's see what happens. Because it is...
You know the parrots calling you.
I'm not sure what he just heard, and I'm not sure what made the noise, but I did hear a small rustle in the vegetation to the left of him. It could have possibly been a bird, like a francolin. But let's keep an eye on what happens here, because wouldn't it be incredible if something came down to drink and provided him with an opportunity to stalk it?
There you go, to the spots in the face. So these two dots are sort of amalgamated. Go to that side, it's not so clear, not sharp. 1, 2, and then a bigger dot. You can use a combination of all kinds of dots on the face, but those are the ones that we focus on. Otherwise you can get yourself confused.
Brenda in Pennsylvania has just asked an interesting question, and she's interested to know my thoughts on whether lions or leopards are better at grooming themselves.
But it's interesting
And I haven't noticed a difference, to be honest, Brenda. But then again, that could just be me not paying enough attention to the situation.
and even
But when you look at lion and leopard, I think, despite their difference in coats, they're always in rather remarkable condition, considering the environment that they live in, that is dry and dusty, especially at this time of the year, with a lot of burrs and thorns and seeds that will stick onto their coat. So I wouldn't put either ahead of the other. Potentially individuals may be slightly better than others within the lion community and the leopard community, but I haven't personally noticed a difference.
they're not, they go their own way.
It's not to say if you see them
There's
fail
big
to
no,
like
not at all. So like when we were here with Sharp, we were there at 5 months, we didn't see one single breeding bird. But lots of birds all over the place.
Well, we've got a little glimpse of the buffalo with his headrest that VM's just pounding across to, and it appears that we've just missed that little window of opportunity and it's now passed
You would almost expect more
behind that bush, but that was the individual, and he still does have this fancy accessory tucked behind his left ear.
with the water holes, whereas these private reserves, Sabi Sand and the bottom, but especially the Sabi Sand, has big numbers of water holes like
And
this.
he continues to either scratch his head or
Yeah, so
polish up
in
his
fact, they've shown
impressive horns against that vegetation.
the Sabi Sand in August, September. There's a massive influx of elephants into the Sabi Sand because of the water. Everywhere else in
Oh, here he goes. Oh, no, he's just getting comfortable again,
So you end up with
which is difficult with his full belly.
Sabi Sand compared to I can't say that I particularly noticed. I mean, some of the landowners will tell you, oh, that there's some of the night trees are being killed. So, yeah, there must be some.
I've just got a question through from Kelly on Twitter. Good afternoon and welcome along. Kelly's interested to know whether buffalo will rally together and chase leopard, just like they do with lion. And they certainly will. A colleague of mine, when I was working in the southern Sabi Sands a few years back, had an incredible sighting of the dominant male leopard in that area, who was treed up a tiny dead leadwood log that was probably only 2.5 meters high and very thin, and the leopard was balancing precariously on top of this leadwood with a herd of about 200 buffalo surrounding it. So it thankfully didn't get dislodged from that tree, because if they had have dislodged it, it would have been far too many hooves and horns to deal with. So yes, they certainly will, but will be kind of less inclined to or less required to, because leopards do pose less of a threat to buffalo. Having said that, though, large male leopards have been
Apologies for a break in our transmission this afternoon. We've had a power failure here. There seems to be some pretty dark cloud coming in from the south. I don't know if this weather has anything to do with it. No sound. Okay. I think it's fine to have the picture if there's no sound, and hopefully Alec can sort it out. I'll just stay quiet, but it's rather having a picture than
How's your sign language?
not good. I used to carry a little card for sign language,
Okay.
just in case. I should get one again. I have it taped to the dashboard. I'm just checking, just in case. Okay. That's wonderful if you can. I always try and imagine that maybe there's a technical break somewhere else and somehow the sound is getting through. Welcome back. It's quite a thing to lose power where we are, and normally we would start up a generator and power would be down, but it's even worse when power dips the way it does. It did it a couple of times yesterday as well. We lost power entirely for a few hours, and course it does result in software glitches whenever it starts up again. But there are some that need manual input. Thank you, Nikki. We went back, Jason and I went back to camp because we wanted to see what was going on. Thought we might have to start the generator. And while we were at camp, I just heard elephant trumpeting here. And, well, no, they weren't really trumpeting, they were screaming. There was a bit of an elephant scream, as it were. Oh, like a moan. But it was like a being reprimanded moan. Not a distress moan. Anyways, hopefully we'll find an elephant. See what might have caused the trees attacking me. On the way back from Buffelshoek Dam this morning, we had a very big bull at Gowrie Dam in full bust. He wasn't very kind to a couple of buffalo that were there, but they did keep a wide berth. They were taking no chances. Maybe he's still around. Yeah, they are. Hello, children. So who's being naughty and who isn't? Good afternoon, Madam Elephant. And how are you this afternoon?
Have you seen that elephant with the backwards tusk?
No. Only at home in the Timbavati.
Oh, there's one
Oh,
over there
there.
on your left.
That's her. Fang, I call her. Fabienne's even seen her.
I'll try.
I've got to get a photograph of this. This is a herd that visits a place called Africa on Foot up in Timbavati.
Can't see her.
No, I'm gonna.
There you go.
I'm going to probably stay up all night finding photographs of this cow that has, see, a little bit more. I had to stop there because the cow that's in front of us, I don't want to disturb the little bull that's in front of us too. But there, that female that we're looking at on the right, looking through the bushes, not easy to see her. I'm hoping we'll get to see her again. But she's got a very distinctive fang-like configuration to her right tusk. There's some children playing off to the left, two older ones with the little youngster. The little youngster's a little bit shorter than a lot of the brush around here, so we can only see the two older ones. I'm going to try and get look at that. Try and get a little bit closer to see these three. Is this sorry, little boy. Oh, here comes the little one. Come and say hello, child. Do that again. Jump up on your back legs like that again. Mum's come to see what's going on. Hello, Mum. Another baby down the road. Nikki's telling me there's some interesting things happening at Buffelshoek Dam, and of course, sure, I'll give you a thumbs up when. And Nikki's saying that there's some things happening at Buffelshoek Dam. I'm going to try and get into another position with these Ellies. I want to see this one cow that's got fang-like tusk. Fang, we've called her in the past. So. Also with the little ones playing. Going to see what's happening at Buffelshoek Dam. Interesting developments there. And clear.
Welcome back. And interestingly enough, the female hyena, hold on, let me just rephrase. What could potentially be a female hyena, I'm not entirely sure. I think that she's a female because she is large. But what I know is that she's the same hyena that was feeding on the Inyala very close to quarantine last night. And she's very easy to distinguish because she's lacking her tail. Now, just a few seconds ago, she disappeared behind the vehicle. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reposition slightly and see if we can't see her. She really is an interesting looking old hyena. And she's got a few stories to tell, I'm sure. Now, as we leave here, I'm going to keep a very close eye on quarantine because he could at any moment come down to drink and we wouldn't want to miss that. But I do want to try and show you this hyena. Where has it gone? I'm going to take a quick look where the kill was left. I could just see her. She's slunk off into the vegetation, so I'm going to turn around and go back to quarantine because I don't think we'll get a visual of her. So at least we tried, but she was moving too quickly for us, and as we were leaving I saw quarantine yawn, which again it's a great indicator that it could be getting active shortly. So let's get back here because it really will be beautiful to see him come down to the water's edge and have a drink, especially if we are positioned directly across from him. All the buffalo have moved off, and other than the hyena coming to visit, there's been other animals coming through, so really interesting how it can change from day to day. Yesterday there was an incredible amount of action going on here, and that's something wonderful about being out here in the wilderness, is that you never know what to expect, and you can be in one area just hours or minutes after seeing incredible things happening in one place. And that's what's so useful about having a decent amount of us patrolling this area searching for game, because if there weren't more vehicles out and about looking for action, and if we weren't in radio contact, we wouldn't be able to see nearly as much as we do. So it's definitely a team effort out here. Just got a question through from Cheryl asking, why is it that when they start to yawn it's an indicator that they might be getting active? It's a good question. It's simply a behavioral trait that I've noticed over the past years viewing big cats. It can sometimes be one yawn and then they get up, or other times 2 or 3 or 4 before they get up. Well, like today, it's yawned twice in the last probably 45 minutes and has yet to get up. But by yawning, they're increasing their oxygen intake, just as we are, therefore potentially waking them up more to a point that they can become active. So that would be the more scientific angle, I guess, of looking at it. Simply by yawning, they're taking a deeper breath, getting more oxygen into their lungs, and that oxygen can therefore be dispersed around their body to wake them up to a degree. But as we are discussing the likelihood of him waking up, he gets comfortable and falls fast asleep again. I am confident, though, at some stage he will get up and come and drink. So we're in no rush to go anywhere. And with a bit of patience, hopefully we'll be able to share a beautiful sighting with you shortly. Just got a question through from Tess in Ohio. Good evening, Tess, and welcome along. Tess is interested to know whether its full belly will hinder its performance in any way, in terms of hunting and running and climbing. And yes, I think it would to a degree. Carrying that extra weight would be a burden to it to an extent. In the same breath, though, I think when the adrenaline of a chase kicks in, that adrenaline may well overpower the full belly and the effect that it does have on it. I've seen leopards that are full-bellied feeding on carcasses at the base of a tree, knowing that by being at the base of a tree they can get up the tree quickly, either themselves or with their kill if anything comes along. And on various occasions either wild dog, hyena or lion have arrived on the scene, and the leopard, full-bellied, has within an instant been able to carry that kill up the tree effortlessly. So I don't think it will hinder it to a degree where it will actually get it into any form of trouble. Just got a question through from Dodie in Vancouver, and Dodie's interested to know why we haven't seen any really small buffalo around. And the major reason for that is because we haven't had the large herds of females and their young moving through our property very much. In December we had them once or twice, and I think in January again once or twice, but in all of my time here I personally have yet to see a large herd of buffaloes. And by a large herd I essentially mean a breeding herd. They vary in size, but they are the herds where the females and their youngsters are the predominant makeup of the herd. And if we had have been seeing them, we certainly would have seen youngsters among them. There are seasonal peaks where buffaloes will give birth, and that is mainly in our summer months over November, December and January. But that's not to say that buffalo calves can be born in winter. Occasionally I have seen buffaloes giving birth at various times throughout the year, not just in the summer. And hopefully in the coming months, as vegetation supplies alter throughout the different parts of the Kruger National Park, maybe the buffalo will be inclined to come back to this area where they haven't done much grazing. It certainly would be great for us, because it's very often that prides of lion will trail the large herds of buffalo in the hope of taking down either calves or older mothers. Just got a question through from Debbie in Lakewood. Good evening and welcome. Debbie is interested to know whether leopards will use sight or scent when hunting prey, and it really does depend on each individual scenario, Debbie. They'll not only use their sight and their sense of smell, but they'll also use their hearing. It will certainly help them to detect prey, especially for now, for example, as this leopard lies here. The wind may not be in its favor, its eyes are closed, but it could certainly hear some prey approaching if they were to rustle through some leaf vegetation. So that's an example of where its hearing may be the initial alert for potential prey. In thicker vegetation, before they see prey, potentially they could smell it. So a lot does depend on that, and each individual scenario will be different. But a combination of all three of those senses will be used when hunting. Well, it sounds like we should cut back to Mark. He's found himself some more great action, and as you can see, quarantine isn't up to much. So we'll keep an eye on him and catch up with you a little bit later.
We're sitting amongst some farmed round-leaf teak with several families of elephant, I think, and it's quite amazing because, well, these are a bunch of children that are playing. Here comes one of the moms, but it kind of gives the children an opportunity to run around when they're in this kind of vegetation, because this vegetation has actually been cropped and farmed by these and other elephants to provide these exact conditions where the females can stand, they can see above a lot of it, and the children can just run amok, and there's a lot of food to eat. There's a lot of this teak for them to pick up and play with and chew on. And I'm guessing these are the little boys of the family that are being boisterous. I see you, child. I feel you. Good afternoon, James. James, oh, here comes a very little one. Quite appropriate, considering the question. James in Kansas City, in Missouri. The survival rate of these youngsters. Well, it's very high here in Kruger, James. Hello, baby child. You're right next to the car. Jumping up on its back legs. Hello, everybody's coming to greet us. Maybe coming to welcome Jason back into the fold. Each carrying their own little round-leaf teak branch. It's like candy. It's like chewing gum for them. And the more they feed on it, the more it grows. But James is asking about mortality rate in infants and what's it like here. In fact, there's a very, very low mortality rate here in Kruger. I think, James, if you've spent some time, and I think I think it's the same James that I'm thinking of, who's been with us a lot. James, you'll have noticed in many family groups that we've been with, in every single family group there are anywhere from 2 to 3 calves per female of every age. And so, look at this little one. She's gorgeous. I don't know where to look first. But James, here, protection has been pretty good for Ellies. And as a result of that, the families are having a wonderful success in raising and teaching their youngsters. So there's a very good succession of knowledge. The little boys are sparring in front of us. It's almost like we've been accepted. I think the areas in, say, maybe northern Botswana, there are some areas where there's a higher attrition rate, and perhaps it has, especially in northern Botswana where lion are preying on young elephant, it's a lot different. So it largely depends on the area that we're talking about, but I'm pleased to say that in the places where I live, up in the Timbavati, coming down here into the Sabi Sand and this part of Kruger, this middle area of the greater Kruger Park, where I get to see a lot of the same individuals, very successful families, and I think most of it has got to do with perhaps one of the most important saviors of elephant in this area is the game lodge and photographic tourism industry, which allows us, by the behavior of the vehicles and the way the whole industry works, it allows us to sit here in slightly windy conditions, a little bit grey overcast, and we have had almost an entire family come up to us to greet us and say hello and carry on feeding, little ones behaving. But unfortunately humans don't behave the same, and so there are areas in Africa where elephants are in conflict with humans, and there are areas where their numbers are declining rapidly. Tanzania used to have incredible elephant conservation. When I was there in the late 90s, one of the biggest game reserves in Tanzania, probably about 3 times the size of Kruger, the elephant population was bouncing back from a severe hammering that it took in the late 80s, early 90s due to poaching. And finally the population was bouncing back in the late 90s, going into the first part of this century. And lately there's been a turnaround, and lately 30 to 40 elephants are being killed there a day, every single day. Thousands of elephants a year throughout Africa. And obviously in places like that, the survival rate of youngsters is very, very low. You just have to get in touch with or find some information on the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust and the Elephant Orphanage in Kenya, and the work they're doing with orphaned elephants. It's quite sad how much of the world, how much of the planet we're affecting. It's not just, we do have this incredible problem with the rhino poaching, and it is escalating at such a rate that we're going to lose this animal very, very soon. And shortly after the rhino, it's going to be the elephant. And these magical moments that we're experiencing now, future generations will only look at archives and think, wow, must have been like living with dinosaurs. The biggest animal they'll have on the planet will be a domestic cat, or a Doberman, or a Great Dane, or an English Mastiff, or an Arabian horse. Anyway, getting morbid. A lovely evening here with the Ellies, with a very good population. Don in Durban. It's so nice to hear someone's in Durban. How you Don? Why do the Mapani elephants appear larger than others? I think it's an optical illusion, because a lot of those Mapani elephants are the same elephants. In fact, I've been taking some photographs of these, and there's one particular cow here that are the same Ellies that I see up there in that Mapani veld. So there is a lot of movement between all the elephants in Kruger. Unless, Don, you're referring to maybe the elephants of the Mapani veld up on the Zambezi. There's the fangs, Mom. A lot of grumbling and a lot of excitement. We've been hearing it for a while before we came out on drive. Hello Terry, interesting question. Because of course these things do happen, but Terry was asking, there's something going on here, we're going to sit around and we're going to wait and see. Unfortunately our vision isn't really great, we're hindered by a lot of vegetation, and of course now this big female has now taken up a position that, in fact they've come together, a bunch of females have come together, and she's nursing her little one. The question is, what happens when an elephant dies of natural causes? And hello madam, baby wants to drink, and I think maybe Fang is going to come out now soon as well. Under the circumstances in these private reserves, the landowners, the tusks, look at this, this is a little boy, this little one drinking. The tusks can never leave the property. The landowners can never do anything with them but keep them on the property and make sure they don't ever enter the market. And in the Kruger National Park, or in the national park, the government stores them in a vault with all the other ivory that they've collected over the years. Recently Kenya and Uganda have both burnt stockpiles of ivory to try and send a message that has no use, it has no value. The value belongs on the elephants. There's Fang, here she comes, this wonderful old cow with the down curved tusk. I think I remember seeing her even down back in 2009 and 10. Hello, Mrs. Z. Okay, Jerry. All good. All good. All good, everything's good. She's incredibly big, this one that we're looking at now. She's decided she's going to go around the bush. You see, at this stage I can't do anything, I can't move anywhere. They've chosen to come out next to me, and if I were to start up it would startle the children, and at the moment they're all very relaxed. There's a lot of talking going on, as you could hear, a lot of rumbling. Hello Dodie, Vancouver. Dodie's asking if a cow would suckle an orphaned Ellie. Of course it would. That's what they're about. They're incredible beings, elephants. They're one of the few mammals actually that will engage in allosuckling or mutual suckling. Look at this. I mean, we don't even know if this one is her calf. But it's a 5-6-year-old elephant. It shouldn't be drinking, but it is. Having a sip. Fly, go away, fly. Way too old to be drinking milk. Which is why you can never say that elephant are weaned at a year or 18 months or whatever. It's like they never get weaned. Very interesting thing I've noticed on this cow, and I'm thinking that maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm going to compare photographs of her and a much younger cow from the Timbavati with almost exactly the same configuration. But if you notice how, you can zoom in on that right tusk, Jay, how you can see her groove, the groove at the tip of the tusk, on the reverse side of the tusk, because it's going backwards like that. How she's using that, the inside of that tusk, to break branches and things. And definitely a right tusk belly. Right, that's a baby jackalberry you're playing with there. Grace! Oh, I want to photograph with the tip of that tusk, but it's just so dark. Grace wants to know if they're eating the leaves or the branches as well. They're actually mixed feeding, Grace. They're eating a number of things. They're eating the bark off of the saplings, the recoppicing teak that it is. This is a round leaf teak that we saw some of them having. There isn't any one particular thing that they will eat at the moment. It's a mix. It's grasses, leaves, chewing bark, whatever comes or whatever is within reach of their trunk when they move through the bush that they want to eat. It's a salad. It's a smorgasbord. Baby elephant, please don't break that little jackalberry. Alright, listen, no, you don't eat jackalberries, and got distracted. Doesn't take long for a child to be distracted. Now eating leaves, little one, stripping leaves from the round leaf teak. They eat more of the bark of the teak, but it is eating an odd leaf. Hey, Dronga. Hello, Gina. Welcome to our drive. Gina wants to tell the difference between bulls and cows. Yes, it is head shape. Gina's saying she thinks it's head shape. It is to a large extent. Of course, in youngsters it's not that easy because it's only really in adulthood that they get a very distinctive adult feature, which is much like us. We have such distinctive features as individuals, and it is the same with elephants. But growing up the childlike faces of calves. Scott, come in. Anyways, yeah, I'm just opposite the lodge. But once they become adults, the features become more set, and that's when you start noticing individual facial features. And ultimately, the angle of the forehead, if we're looking at this little one, it's hard to really tell being a youngster, but generally where the top of the head the top of the head sort of goes into the forehead, you can see quite a sort of steep angle there, and as adult cows it becomes very square, but it's a lot more rounded in bulls. But then again, there are other features. Genitalia is one thing, obviously, and it helps with a lot of mammal dimorphism. Adult female elephant, once they've given birth, their mammaries are very evident between the front legs, and of course that profile of the stomach for a bull or a male is different to that of a female's. Generally, when we find a group like this, they're mostly females and youngsters. There is a bull amongst here. We saw him earlier when we first arrived as a young bull. Whether he's a family member that has been apart from the herd and joined up with older bulls and come back, or whether that's a difficult call to make. I have no idea of his relationship. He's a kind of age that's not really part of the herd, but he might be just socializing with them for a while. Could be a day or two or a week or so. You know, it's up to him. It's up to them. A lot of people are asking why the tusk would grow like that. Is it a birth defect or is it an injury? It's most likely just a genetic imperfection. It is just an aberration, a genetic aberration, let's call it that. Like every now and then we might get some human with very buck teeth, forward pointing teeth. Whether it is a sign of inbreeding or not, I don't know. I would be able to answer that better if it were an antelope with horns, because there you can see it when it becomes a problem with inbreeding, because the genetics get so mixed up that you can see deformities in the horns before you can see anything else. But for her, as I'm looking at her now, I think it's just an anomaly. We had an elephant. There was an Ellie bull in Thornybush a couple of years ago, who his right tusk was also deformed, but it also grew with a very distinct groove in the tusk, rather a strange groove. And well, it's just one of those things that you never know. You can never tell what it is that caused it, or yes, she is here now next to us. Although she's got her face in the bushes. Let's go forward because we can't see her. We'll look at those two little ones that are playing through there. It is getting dark. It's going to get dark a little bit sooner this evening because it has now become completely overcast. Although it's very high cloud. We did have one or two drops falling earlier. I'm hoping that maybe during the night there's some precipitation. Elephants for Africa, all around it. Hello Lynn, Michigan. Morning to you. I have never had the pleasure or the opportunity, Lynn, of seeing an elephant being born. Quite strange really, having spent so much time with elephants over the last 30 years or so. Well, most of my life really, but in a work environment. But then again, I've never seen an impala being born, and you see, look at how many impala or even wildebeest there are, and I've never had that pleasure either. So one day, if I'm lucky, one day. She's a lovely big cow, this one. I think she might be the grand old dame of the whole lot. Look at this little clearing, just full of ellies. Up on my hat. Ellie's on my hat. But as I say, weather coming in and starting to get a bit grey, and we're losing light. Once it gets too dark, we'll be leaving them be, because we can't really watch ellies in the dark. We don't use lights with ellies. They don't like it. They've been very accommodating to us this evening. I'm just going to wait until the big lady that's next to us, until she crosses the road with the rest of the herd, and then we can continue. Here she comes. Good evening, Madam Elephant. She's a big girl. Wow. And the children, you're going to follow yet? I can't go anywhere now. There's another car standing behind me with her calf. But she'll probably come past soon. Hello, madam. One tusk with a floppy ear. Do I know you, madam? Hello, Mrs. Ellie. Hello. Hello, baby child. In my elephant. Totally in my elephant. Question from Final Control. Is this a normal size? There's so many Ellies. This is a bunch of family groups all getting together. There are a lot of them. They just keep coming. There's family after family after family. It's a social gathering. It's a unique moment in time where we get to see a few different families of elephants coming together to spend time together. And well, they generally do move in the same circles over time, over seasons, but not at the same time. But there are times when they get together. Like I've seen 80 elephants gathering for a matter of minutes and then dispersing in different directions. So there's no telling how long they will be together. But whether it's normal or not, that's a different story. It's normal. It's normal in elephant terms. It's rather unique and very, very special to be part of a moment like this, where there are so many elephants getting together, but that we've been right in the middle of them with them being so accommodating. Not a single hint of aggression, not even an ear flap or none of them have thrown their head at us. They're still coming. They're actually moving down towards the lodge. We're right opposite room number 7 and 8 of Vuyatela, just down in the dip here from Vuyatela Lodge. And where they're going now, they're moving up towards an area just on the opposite side of the drainage line of Gallagher Camp. And even more elephants, another family group coming through. Hello, Mrs. Ellie. Hello, madam. Hello. Greetings to you, madam. I love you. I love you. And such an incredibly calming effect. I'm still seeing grey foreheads and tusks behind us, still flowing down into the drainage line here at Vuyatela Lodge. I'm going to turn around and we'll continue our drive. Maybe see what Scott's doing back up at the Buffelshoek Dam. Hello, Virginia, Kentucky. Wanting to know if other animals can feel elephant vibrations in the ground. Well, that would be a very, very difficult thing to establish, I have to be honest. I have no idea. I guess there would be some things that do. Most certainly. I know termites would feel it. Because termites use vibrations themselves for communication. They're all accumulating down here, but it is getting dark, and this is the time to say goodnight to Ellie's, because they are going to be a little bit more aware, perhaps a little bit more nervous, maybe, depending. But we don't need to trouble them at night. Bye bye, magic family of pachyderm. Thank you for such a wonderful experience. And namaste. Bye, Ellie. Absolutely marvelous. How are you doing, Justin? Jason? Justin. Just in case your name's Jason. Why did I say Justin? Don't know, sorry. My brain. Okay. You've been away so long, I've forgotten your name.
Yeah, I've got to come back more often, I think.
That's unforgivable. Thank you, Dilly, Wisconsin. Mark in his element. Yes, I was in my element. My element. Most definitely. Fantastic. I think it's safe to put lights on now. Bye, Ellies. Again. Bye-bye. Love you. And to think I was coming out this afternoon to look for a wasp. Well, several wasps. Chameleon, there's a chameleon. I found a chameleon. Look at that. If I do, oh yeah, you can see it pretty well without flooding it in light. But that's too bright. Whoa. Okay. While you're watching a chameleon, I'm just going to. Yeah, I think off or on. What do you think, Chase?
On?
On.
There you go.
Okay. Got to get a stick out from under the car. Sleeping chameleon, flat-necked chameleon it is. We'll leave it be. Sitting out in the open like that, should know better. Okay, let me plug my ears in again before I forget. Right, let's see what there is out there tonight. A little bit of moisture in the air, a bit of wind, a bit different to the last few nights. Spaghetti monster's been here, knotting things up. Copy that. Time to switch gears a little bit. As it gets dark, we have this opportunity of maybe making its way out for the evening. One of the best times, I guess, is the first hour after sunset, first hour after dark, when nocturnal life wakes up and starts getting active. It tends to slow down towards the middle of the night, and there are animals that will move around a lot sporadically during the night, but in terms of most of the activity, it is somewhat different. The last few nights that we've had, in fact quite a few nights that we've had recently, have been very still, very hot, very warm and humid, and of course that influences insect activity, that influences of course all of those insectivorous creatures that come out after insects. Tonight there's a bit of a wind, there's a front coming, something's happening to the weather, quite a strong wind. Sorry, Nightjar. Quite a strong wind coming in from the south, and with it, a change in behavior, I guess. Not many insects are going to be out, any, but strong for small things to be flying around. It's quite dusty. Dust is not an insect's friend. In fact, dust can kill insects quite easily. They tend to stay grounded, and that tends to keep their predators grounded to some degree. But we might be lucky to see something sneaking about. And that's the aim of the next phase of our drive before we close down. While we were with the elephant, I didn't have a question, and the question was probably sent in, and in the time that it took, suddenly there were elephant right next to us, and of course it was just one of those times, and I just had to hold it in my head and wait until they were all passed along and moved by, because it was one of those moments when it didn't want to talk. It was a moment of silence. Well, silence from me, but time to hear the yellies. And I think it was Philip in Johannesburg that was asking the question. I'm not mistaken. Brendan, not Philip. Seacrest. Jason. Carol NFC. No, wait, what's it? It's Nikki NFC. Brendan was asking, did I know that elephants are related to duskies? Now, the dusky is a hyrax. Belongs to a family in Hyracoidea, and the hyraxes are quite incredible. Years ago, millennia ago, there were probably more varieties of hyrax than there are antelope today, and the hyraxes occupied almost all of the niches that are occupied by antelope in present day and age. We're talking about millions of years ago, from fossil evidence. And slowly but surely, with the, I suppose, the diversity of antelope and the increase in predators and the different physiology of antelope versus hyraxes, hyraxes started dying out, and only the few hyraxes that were left are ones that have found such a tight little niche in the ecosystem that, well, there's no antelope, or very few, that can even compete with them anymore. These are mostly little animals that are now either tree dwelling, bush dwelling, or rock dwelling, but they live in... Oh look, there's the Easter Bunny. I get interrupted by my own story. It's a bit bright. Not even the bright lights. How about that? That's better. Just a bit of side lighting. Or we could do double shadow. Or I can switch shadows.
It's gonna have an epileptic fit.
Sorry. Yes, true. That did confuse the poor child, so I think I'm just going to switch off and let the child move off of the road. It's still light enough it can see me, rather than having the lights on it we can't see anything. We'll let it adjust. It's okay, I'm also a deer in the headlights. I've got this light on my face too. Except it's not a bunny, it's not a rabbit, it's a hare. It's a scrub hare. Excuse me, child. Hello. Excuse me. Pardon. Off he goes, running up the road. Lightning. Okay, sure, I'll keep that in mind. Thanks, Nikki. Okay. Just going to run along the road, aren't you? It's fine. I'll take the next junction right, you take the next junction left. How's that sound? Hare? This is a scrub hare. Anyways, I was on Brendan's question. The hyraxes are related to elephants from some other connection even before the hyraxes split up so much. Come, little one. Disturb the nightjar. There is another member of the family, or a couple of other members of the family that are also related to elephants, and those are the dugongs and the manatees. Now, dugongs are our African and Australian equivalents of the manatees in Gulf of Mexico. Also related to elephants. I have to look at the book tomorrow. I'll open up my mammal book. It's a bit dark. Put the light on the book now, it's going to reflect. Here's Hyena Road. Maybe, yes. Okay, you go right, I'll go left. You go left, I'll go right. There we go. Yeah, you go right, I'll go left. No, here goes left, I'll go right. Just needed a junction. And as promised, the hare goes left. I'm going to go right down Bolter's Nest. So what was the other question I was going to get back to? The one from this morning. No, me neither. Please bear with me. Sometimes I get distracted and I completely forget about what I was saying. But that is because nature is so distracting. When I'm driving and I'm talking and I'm looking at all sorts of things, my brain is processing so many different things. And then when there's something that's suddenly exciting or something that I want to show you, it's It's like my brain closes a file and opens a blank one. To start a new page. And then forgets where it filed the previous one. I saw a little bit of lightning earlier. That's exciting. Owls in trees, bush babies in trees, maybe genet in trees, porcupines, honey badgers, civets. Oh, if we're lucky, things like an aardvark or a pangolin, of course, but that's pushing our luck, wishing upon a star. White-tailed mongoose is another one we can find, but we need to be up on an open grassland area, like the area we call quarantine. We need to be up there to find the white-tailed mongoose. What else did we find out here? Shrews and big lightning, but sadly this lightning is way off into the west again. Every time it builds up and I get so excited and it just washes over to the west along the mountains, leaves us drying and dying out here in the dust. Go to hook a storm and pull it to where you want it. We're going to do a little bit more of a night drive while we've got a few moments to spare. We are keeping in touch with what's happening with quarantine. He's not moving yet. As soon as he starts moving, and before the end of the drive, we will be going back to him. Another nightjar in the road. Don't disturb it too much there. It's gone already. Maybe, let's see how our signal is going to be going into the riverbed. Take a quiet drive down the sand of the riverbed and see maybe there's something down there. Beautiful tall trees on either side. It is, but just repeat because
Helen in the Netherlands has asked me a question, and she wants to know if I watched the drives when I was away at varsity, and I really actually did. And the thing that I thought was the saddest when I was watching that no one understood that was sitting around me was when Brian's mom died. So I was watching, making sure everyone was still safe. And I've got my parents addicted to it as well, so they're always watching. And a lot of friends as well. So yes, I watch it quite often.
Were you at Varsity when you watched Brian's mom thingy? When Brian's mom was eating?
I was watching with the free Wi-Fi, so I just got bits and pieces and splashes of, I don't know, questionable, answerless agony almost.
No, it was quite a shocker.
And then no one understood that you can actually watch this stream perfectly, so they wondered why I was watching this. And I pointed it out, and then they came and sat with me, and it got quite fun.
Hello, Marsha in Kentucky. Nice to hear from you. I should actually find my rodent book. Marsha's asking if we have any voles. Yeah, I don't think we even get voles in Africa, Marsha. Their equivalents, I can't even think of what we could. I think voles are mostly Northern Hemisphere. Europe? You get them in North America, but no, we don't get voles here. I mean, our rodent population is pretty extensive. Hello, Bonnie. He lives with coyotes and they're starting to get active now, going into the breeding season. Bonnie wants to know if our jackal or hyena or wild dog get vocal like that. Our jackal do, Bonnie. Our jackal are very similar to the coyotes and they do get very vocal. Hyena do get vocal, but not for the same reason. Completely different society, jackal society and hyena society. Wild dog, they don't get vocal like coyote or wolves at all, although wild dog do live in the same type of matriarchal society that wolves do, with an alpha as well, but only really jackal. I mean, hyena vocalize, but they don't vocalize for the same reasons. They vocalize because they're constantly keeping in contact with each other. It's all about where they are and what they're doing and what they're feeding on, what they found, when they need help, when they want to hunt. I'm sure you'll come back to me in the meantime. But let's cross back to Scott. We'll go and see what quarantine is doing and what's happening at night, since night has fallen.
Welcome back, and as you can see, not much has changed here other than the lighting. It's become dark, and it's been beautiful to sit here in the same place and watch the change of lights. But sadly, quarantine has not moved a muscle, and not much has changed here. Very happy to hear that you had what sounds like an incredible elephant sighting with many, many elephants streaming past the vehicle. And Mark certainly seems to be picking the right places to be on this property over the last few drives, and it's always great when the game viewing excuse me, is constant and flowing between the two vehicles out here. There's a lot of elephant audio behind us, and they've just started up in the last minute or so. As soon as this vehicle leaving the sighting is left, it will certainly help in us hearing this audio. And they sound quite worked up. I'm not sure exactly what is working them up, but there's been some really loud trumpeting. So there could potentially be some elephants coming down to drink. It'll be interesting to follow up on quarantine tomorrow morning, because I'm certain he would have moved off from this area, unless, of course, he's lucky enough to make another kill. But I'm hoping if he does move, he'll head south back towards the central parts of Djuma. He's currently in our northeastern kind of corner, and quite close to our northern boundary. It's the first time I've seen him this far north. That's not to say he hasn't spent time here in the past. But over the last 3 months, he certainly has been spending more time on the central and southern parts of Djuma. I'm not sure if you picked up that elephant audio of some trumpeting. You could well have, but we could probably expect to continue to hear a few more trumpets. We've got another question that came through a little bit earlier from Grace, but Nikki's just sent it through to me now, and it's a very relevant question. Grace is interested to know whether there's any female leopards that we see here on Djuma, and also Arathusa, another property we traverse to our west. And yes, since we've been broadcasting over the last probably coming on 4 months now, we've seen 2 female leopards, if I'm not mistaken, 2 adult female leopards. Those 2 being Karula, the mother of Quarantine, this leopard we're looking at now, and Shadow, which is one of Quarantine's daughters from a previous litter. Shadow was last seen with her cub, which was about 6 or 7 months old when we saw it a couple of months back. But we haven't seen her very often, and Karula certainly has been the most viewed female leopard that we see. We also saw a young female, I forget her name, the daughter of a female leopard called Nkayeni, which moves through this northeastern area, but we sadly have yet to see Nkayeni.
Scott,
yeah?
we've got a visitor. Right behind us.
What is it, Ellie's?
Yeah.
Okay, well, as you've heard VM say, there's some elephants coming down behind us, and I'll try and use my spotlight just to light it up vaguely, but we don't want to blind the elephant, so as soon as it comes into the brighter light, I will switch the spotlight off. So I'm just bathing it in the periphery light of our spotlights, and you'll be able to make it out very vaguely there, but I don't want to blind it. And for those of you who are new to the safari experience, we only shine spotlights on nocturnal animals whose night sight can be regained more easily than the daytime animals such as elephants. But very nice to have the elephant sneak up behind us, and at least it's It certainly has got quarantine's attention, so we'll pan back to him as he stares very intently at that elephant. And very happy to hear that you did pick up the elephant audio, or did hear the elephant audio that came through earlier. Nikki's just sent that through to me now. And look at how beautiful this is. This is something else. Well, it's probably been over an hour that we've been sitting here watching him fast asleep. So very happy that he has decided to finally get up, and now what we can hope for is that he's going to come down for a drink, because if he does, it will be something absolutely wonderful to see. Now, for those of you who enjoy taking screenshots, I'll give you a warning, and I think he is going to yawn once or twice. Again, my predictions haven't been very accurate this afternoon, but I am willing to take a chance here and warn you that I think he could yawn at any moment. So be ready with those buttons. Valerie on Twitter is just confirming that Shadow is Karula's daughter, and sorry if I didn't explain that clearly. It is indeed Karula's daughter, Shadow, not the daughter of Quarantine. Quarantine is yet to, excuse me, sire any youngsters, and it'll probably be a minimum of 3 or 4 years before he does have any mating opportunities. That is, of course, unless he manages to fly below the radar and sneak in and mate with a female in an area where he is not dominant. And that will happen from time to time, but nature does have an incredible way of ensuring that the right paths are taken, and it would be important for him to be away from this area when he does become dominant and start mating. Otherwise there'd be a chance that he would mate with his siblings or even his mother if the opportunity presented itself. The yawn is coming, so be ready for it. I'm getting more and more confident that he's going to. We've just got a question through from Joyce, and she's interested to know how we know that this leopard is Quarantine. Now, there's various areas that you can look within its body in order to ensure that it has a certain spot pattern, and I personally like to look right above the whisker line, and now sadly we're a little bit far away for VM to zoom in. But on its left muzzle it has 3 individual spots that are parallel to the top black whisker line. And on his right hand side he also has 3 spots, but kind of 2 are joined together, so you could almost call it 4 spots. It's 2 furthest back down the muzzle that are interconnected, and then 2 smaller ones leading towards its nostrils. So it therefore has a 3-3 spot pattern, and the signs are looking better and better here for him to come down and have a drink. There's another viewer who says he's got 2 triangles on either cheek, which they use, and I can see one triangle now right below its left eye. The one on its right eye I haven't seen too clearly yet, but there's various different patterns that you can look for, Joyce. Here he comes. Now we may need to reposition the vehicle ever so slightly in order to get into a good spot, but we will wait and see. If we do though, just bear with us. Copy that. Well, what a beautiful sight this is, and there's certainly something about seeing them on the move in darkness. I think it would be best for us to turn around quickly, because VM's no longer going to be able to film it if it goes any further around there. So hold on for a second as we reposition. And he has just started to drink, so I'll try and be as quick as possible. Well, look at that. This is absolutely beautiful, and I hope you're all enjoying this. Well, this is the moment we have been waiting the whole afternoon for. I'm so fortunate that our patience has paid off and that he has got up when he did, because he was cutting it fine. There's not much time left. And what a magical sight this is. Hopefully the other good thing about him becoming active now is if he does continue to move and we see which general direction he moves in, that will certainly help in us tracking him down tomorrow. We've just got a question from Ellen in Illinois, and she's asking a question relating to a potential event that could have unfolded earlier. There was some Inyala that came down to drink at the waterhole, and sadly they were on the wrong side of the water for him to have made an easy attack, and nothing ended up happening. But had he have managed to catch one, the buffalo bulls that were in the area would certainly have rallied up and tried to attack this leopard, even though they would be protecting a species that is not of their own. And I think they would indeed chase off a leopard, or most other predators for that matter. Sorry, could you go again there? Negative. A very important aspect of all the animals that live out here's lives is grooming themselves. And from the birds to the antelope to the predators, they all do invest a lot of time keeping themselves in tip-top condition. Excuse me. And what an incredible afternoon and evening it's been again. We've been really spoiled with some incredible game viewing over the last few weeks and months. Actually, our luck just never seems to run out. And moments like this afternoon, shared with Mark and the elephants with you, and the incredible sightings we've had of this leopard are truly magical. And people come out on safari many times in their life and never get to witness spectacles like this. So it is important to realize how lucky we actually are, and especially the fact that we can bounce between the two vehicles that way, showing you twice as much as you typically see on any given safari out here. Really does make for some incredible stuff. And it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow, and that's also one of the great things about this, is that we really have no idea what may happen overnight, and certainly look forward to finding out what's happened. I'm just going to look here. I heard something rustling around, but can't see anything. The bush is very thick behind me. But just double checking there wasn't anything interesting coming along. There was a hyena that came past earlier briefly, and it was smelling about, and it could have potentially come back. So I was just double checking that wasn't the case. The other great news about today is that Romeo has come back on the team, so good to have him back here. He left in kind of the end of January and is busy at university. Anyway, good to have him back on the team. Sad to see Brian go, but happy to have Romeo return. Anyway, from myself and VM on camera, thanks very much for following us this evening, and great job to Mark and Romeo, as well as Nikki in the final control. And we'll spend these last few moments watching Quarantine sleeping. See you tomorrow.